What's going on, guys? My name is Wade with TechDaily, and in this video, we are checking out the Redmi Note 15 Pro Plus. Now, this phone was actually released a couple months back. I am, like always, a little late to get to it. Sorry about that. It had sort of a staggered release with different variants for different parts of the world. There was first a China-only model with slightly different specs, and then like a month later, we got this, the global version, which basically means everywhere but the US. And even though I do in fact live in the US, I still really enjoy checking out the latest from Redmi, which is Xiaomi's sort of entry-level and mid-range smartphone brand, because frankly, we don't have a lot of $500 or under options in America anymore. And I guess I like to torture myself with things that I can't have. More than that though, I like to see what sort of devices the rest of the world gets for a more reasonable price and kind of compare them to the latest flagships and some other options I'm more familiar with. So I'm excited to check this one out and see what it's all about. Before we get into all the dirty details though, let's just quickly unbox it first, and then I'll tell you everything you need to know about the new Redmi Note 15 Pro Plus. So ripping off all that plastic wrap there and sliding off the lid, the first thing you'll see inside the box is a pretty thick packet with the Redmi logo printed across it. And inside, there's a SIM ejector tool if you need it, along with thick booklets of very important information, and a Redmi branded matte black case to protect your shiny new phone. Always nice to have that tossed in. Next up is the phone itself, and you can see some of the specs right there, which I'll of course go over in more detail in a moment, but some of the things listed here are pretty impressive for a phone in this price range. And we're actually still not done. At the very bottom of the box, you'll find a USB-A to USB-C cable, which, yeah, I guess is a little odd nowadays to still have this cable type, but it's paired with a 100-watt hypercharge wall plug. Crazy fast charging speeds from a plug and cable that come included in the box. So can't really complain too much about all that. With all that stuff out of the way, here is the Redmi Note 15 Pro Plus once again. And as we get it fully undressed and powered on, let's talk price and where in the world you might be able to buy it. Now, you'll likely find this phone for sale for between $400 and $500 US, depending on the spec and the current conversion rates. In the UK, it's as low as 340 British pounds. In Europe, it's around 400 to 500 euros. Could you buy this phone and use it in the US? Well, yeah, technically. It's available on places like Amazon, eBay, and through other third-party importers and resellers, and pairing it to the T-Mobile network or any of its subsidiaries like Mint or Tello, you'll get up to the 5G network capabilities. But for the rest of the world, it is a globally unlocked GSM device that you can freely purchase and use. And if you're curious about the difference between the China-only model, well, there's different front glass, more RAM for the China model, different camera setup with a telephoto lens, and a slightly bigger battery. So a better device, if I'm being honest, at least on the spec sheet, but not drastic by any means. Also, yes, there are both a regular Note 15 and a Note 15 Pro without the Plus. I could spend the full length of the video just talking about those differences too, but if you have the choice, the price difference isn't much, so I would just go all in and get the Pro Plus with all the best specs. So size-wise, you're looking at a 6.83-inch screen measured corner to corner, which is nearly 2/10 larger than last year's Note 14 Pro Plus. And that bigger display is framed by even, thin black borders, which grants you a tiny bit better of a screen-to-body ratio. I also feel it's important to mention that this phone doesn't have a curved display anymore either, at least not curved glass. There's like just a little bit of a smooth taper to the front glass, but it's technically a flat display now, and in the hand, you feel that. It's a big phone for sure, probably 1/10 of an inch larger than the average flagship phone, but all in all, it's nice to get something this size for this price point. Around back, the back panel on this one here is a fiber reinforced plastic. It looks nice, it has a very metallic-like sheen to it, the edges and frame feel thick and sturdy too, and it might be kind of hard to tell, but this is the glacier blue colorway. It's pretty subtle, especially fully indirect light. You can also opt for black or get a totally different version, mocha brown, which instead is a silicone polymer material, aka eco leather, and I actually think that's the nicest of the three options for sure. I'll also just say that while the camera module back here looks big, it's not particularly bulky. It doesn't stick out all that far and doesn't make the phone top heavy, but it's not actually a 4-lens or even a 3-lens setup like it's trying to masquerade as. More on that in a moment though. There's nothing on the left side of the phone. On the right, volume buttons and your power button. Up top, a nearly full-size second speaker to pair with the main loudspeaker at the bottom. The USB-C port is in the middle down there, and the SIM card tray is also down here as well. The global version supports dual physical SIM cards and eSIM, but no micro SD card support. And I think I mentioned already, but you can spec this phone with 256 gigabytes or 512 gigabytes of storage. I've got the higher storage option, and for better or worse, there are still a lot of pre-installed apps on this phone beyond the usual Xiaomi and Google apps. There's a folder full of games, Booking.com for some reason, TikTok and LinkedIn also come pre-installed. You can very easily uninstall all this bloatware. I'm sure most people also transfer their old phone to this new one and don't see any of this stuff. The reason all these apps are here, though, I believe, is that it helps subsidize the cost of this phone. So like I said, take the good with the bad. If you save a few $100 but have to take 5 minutes to uninstall some of these things, probably not the end of the world. This phone does have an optical in-display fingerprint sensor, which works well. There is a pre-installed screen protector on this phone, which I think is a plus and never impacts the fingerprint reader in my experience. I'd rather have this on the phone out of the box anyway, and you can pair it with Face Unlock as well. If you're curious about the included case, well, here's what that looks like on the phone. It's pretty familiar, something Xiaomi and Redmi have supplied on their phones for years as an in-the-box accessory, and it's not a bad case for being free and being included. With the screen protector too, at least your phone is fully covered right out of the box, so you don't have to worry. And one other physical feature still on this phone, the IR blaster. You can control gadgets that support an infrared remote, so think TVs, cable boxes, some household items and other tech things. I see a lot of people praising this on the few phones that still offer it, so I guess it's still a beloved feature and seems pretty simple to still offer. So let's now talk about this display and what you're actually getting to look at all day long. As I already mentioned, the screen is 6.83 inches corner to corner, and it is an AMOLED panel, a 1.5K resolution to be specific, coming in at 2772 by 1280. That is a step above the standard 1080p screens you'd typically see in this mid-range price point, and frankly, it's more pixels than some flagships have too. It supports Dolby Vision and HDR10 Plus content. Text is sharp no matter how close you put this phone up to your face. Colors look good, it's very vibrant, and it's also quite a bright display, up to 3200 nits. On top of all that, you can also enable the 120Hz high refresh rate or have it automatically adjust. Altogether, the screen is not just better than budget or mid-range, but it does compete with the likes of most other $800 plus name brand flagships you know about. And you even have some color calibration options and other screen settings to mess around with to ensure you've got the exact right look that you prefer. I personally feel that this is a great display for the money, and it's an easy extra couple of points in favor of a phone like this versus, say, a Samsung mid-range A series that might still compromise with a 90Hz screen or an older looking screen style. This phone also has a dual speaker setup, the one standalone one up top and the main one along the bottom, with Dolby Atmos and high-res audio support, and I think the speakers really sound good, especially since that top secondary speaker is sort of a standalone deal and not combined with the earpiece. Here's a quick sample so you can judge for yourself. So now let's talk about what's powering this phone. Inside, the processor for this global version of the Note 15 Pro Plus is the Qualcomm Snapdragon 7S Gen 4 paired with the Adreno 810 GPU. It's a modest bump over the Snapdragon 7S Gen 3 that was in last year's 14 Pro Plus. We're talking maybe a 7 to 10% improvement in CPU performance. So if you were expecting a generational leap, this is not really what this is. With that being said, it's still a much higher than average combination of components, and you're going to get a fast feeling and fully capable phone just without that premium price tag once again. And to be totally honest, while the Snapdragon 7S series is a great chip on its own, if you were doing a direct comparison to the current Snapdragon 8, side by side doing normal everyday smartphone things, I actually doubt you'd see much of a difference. If you're a hardcore gamer or full-time content creator, sure, the flagship phones might be worth it, especially in the long run when it comes to their performance. But I feel like performance differences between phones and between generations are so insignificant nowadays that something like this is perfectly fine and likely even still more powerful than most people would even need day in and day out. You also get either 8 gigabytes or 12 gigabytes of RAM, and along with the virtual RAM feature that these phones have, which lets you pull up to an extra 12 gigs from the onboard storage, again, this is just a ton of power, more than most people utilize, especially for a mid-range device. Software-wise, the phone ships with HyperOS 2.0 on top of Android 15, and while that is technically one software update behind already, Xiaomi has committed to 4 major OS updates and 6 years of security patches for the entire Note 15 lineup. So it's nice to see that support, and outside of all the pre-installed bloatware that you can get rid of, again, I do like HyperOS 2. It runs smoothly, it looks clean and modern and simple. There is, unsurprisingly, some AI features baked in, just like most high-end phones now. Familiar stuff like Circle to Search and Google Gemini, which we know, along with AI writing tools, AI wallpapers, live translation, and some other things. Some of these AI features are region dependent, so your mileage may vary, but they're there if you want them. But unlike, say, Samsung's S26 line, I wouldn't call AI an overarching feature or total selling point on this phone in particular. As far as the battery size and charging speeds, this is where a phone like this easily outshines anything else we get in the US. There's a 6500 mAh battery inside here, the biggest for a Redmi device thus far, and it is a new silicon carbon battery that allows Xiaomi to pack a bigger capacity into essentially the same physical footprint, keeping the phone thin. This is an all-day device and then some. It's a bigger, newer battery than what's inside any other flagship smartphone you can think of right now, at least the ones from the big US-focused brands. And if this phone does die, it supports a 100-watt hypercharge with the included charger I showed you earlier. You can go from 0 to 100% in less than 35 minutes. And it supports reverse wired charging, so you can share that power with another device too. Totally top-tier power features. Again, from a phone that sits at a pretty friendly price point by comparison. Okay, so let's talk about those cameras now. And I do sort of have to explain what's actually going on here because it is a little confusing. Looking at the camera bump around back, it genuinely looks like there are 3 or even 4 cameras, but it's not that. The global version of this phone has 2 actual camera lenses or sensors. There's a 200 megapixel main shooter with OIS and then an 8 megapixel ultra wide, and that's it. Yes, the China exclusive version does have an actual third telephoto lens, lucky them, but what Xiaomi did here is lean heavily into what they're calling 1 lens, 5 focal lengths. Essentially, the 200 megapixel sensor is so high resolution that using AI and in-sensor cropping, the phone can deliver really usable zoom at 2x and 4x with a sort of optical level quality without a dedicated telephoto lens. It's an interesting workaround or advertising pitch, and while it's not the same as having a true optical zoom lens, I think it's an okay compromise. Xiaomi's AI processing does a lot of the heavy lifting behind the scenes to help make these photos look good. The This is what they call the 200 megapixel AI engine. It's doing pixel level restoration and multi-frame fusion to enhance the shots, especially in trickier conditions like low light. A lot of phones rely more on software than hardware to make things look good nowadays. And the other lens, the 8 megapixel ultra wide, is fine. I'm glad to have it for sure. Up front, you're getting a 32 megapixel selfie camera, which is a nice step up from the 16 megapixel lens that was on last year's phone. Crank that AI beauty filter down and you'll be looking pretty good. For as overly advertised as this camera setup is, I personally feel there are other things about this phone that are more enticing, but Xiaomi still crammed a lot of camera stuff into this phone, even if it isn't exactly the physical setup you might think it is at first glance. It's also way better than a lot of the other mid-range phones I'm familiar with, certainly compared to a Moto device, for example, and even the Samsung A series too. Like I said at the start, I really like checking out these budget and mid-range Xiaomi Redmi phones from the perspective of an American who unfortunately doesn't really get the chance to buy these phones regularly and certainly not easily. I think almost any other phone available outside the US in the $500 price point, this one especially, is probably better than anything we're able to buy here. It's basically just Moto G devices. And I think even compared to a lot of other brands, this new Note 15 series is a solid option to consider. But what do you guys think about this new Redmi Note 15 Pro Plus? Is this a phone you're considering for this year? Did you buy one already? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, of course. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video though. Be sure to follow TechDaily on Twitter and subscribe to the TechDaily YouTube channel if you haven't already. And I'll see you guys later.